Toyota has also abandoned plans to make Lexus-branded EVs.
The world's biggest seller of electric vehicles, the Chinese car maker BYD is now in top spot.
A few years ago, BYD was almost unheard of outside China. Now it has 1,000 dealerships.
A Toyota badge sits on the trunk, but under the floor, a battery built by BYD, the same company Toyota has fought for market share across China for years, quietly powers the wheels. For a company that built its name on doing everything itself, this feels wrong. Toyota does not borrow.
Of what hybrids can do, given the fact that they are, competing on a quarter-by-quarter basis with pure battery electric vehicle leadership.
Toyota builds. So why is one of its newest electric cars running on technology from its toughest rival? Is this Toyota admitting defeat, or is something much smarter happening under the hood? To understand that, we have to go back to the moment China's car market stopped playing by the old rules. Toyota walked into a race it wasn't built to win alone. For most of the last century, Toyota did not just make cars, it made a system. The Toyota production way turned reliability into a religion. Every bolt, every process, every supplier relationship was refined over decades until Toyota vehicles became known worldwide for lasting forever. Hybrid technology gave the company an even bigger edge.
It runs current back to the high voltage battery to charge it. So this is the Toyota hybrid system.
While rivals chased flashy engines, Toyota quietly built the Prius into a symbol of smart, dependable engineering. This patient, careful approach made Toyota the largest automaker on the planet. It also taught the company something dangerous to believe, that good things come to those who wait, and that Toyota could out-engineer anyone given enough time. Then China changed the rules of the game entirely. The Chinese car market did not evolve the way Detroit or Tokyo evolved. It leapt. New energy vehicles, the umbrella term for electric and plug-in hybrid cars, went from a niche curiosity to more than half of every new car sold in China within just a few years. This was not a slow shift measured in decades. It was a sprint measured in months. Local brands nobody outside China had heard of 5 years earlier were suddenly outselling global giants, packed with giant touchscreens, software updates that arrived like phone updates, and batteries that charged faster every single year. Here is what made this so uncomfortable for a company like Toyota. In the old combustion world, the engine was king, and Toyota had spent 70 years perfecting engines. But in the electric world, the battery becomes the heart, the brain, and the wallet of the car all at once. It decides how far you can drive, how fast you can charge, how safe the car is in a crash, and roughly a third to nearly half of what the entire vehicle costs to build. Suddenly, the thing Toyota knew best mattered less, and the thing it knew least mattered most. The real problem was never money. Toyota had enormous cash reserves and could invest heavily if it wanted to. The real enemy was time. Building a battery supply chain from scratch meant securing lithium, nickel, and cobalt, setting up refineries and gigafactories, developing reliable battery technology, testing cells for safety, and training engineers with specialized knowledge. None of this could happen overnight. Every part of the process required investment, infrastructure, experience, and years of development. By the time Toyota could build all of that itself, the EV market could already have moved far ahead.
BYD are part of a wave of Chinese EVs, are among 7 Chinese EV companies to launch in Britain.
Meanwhile, the Chinese market was not going to wait politely for Toyota to catch up. Every quarter that passed, homegrown Chinese EV makers pushed further ahead, refining battery chemistry, slashing prices, and rolling out new models at a pace that felt almost unfair to companies used to 5-year development cycles. Toyota watched hybrid sales, once its strongest weapon in China, begin sliding as buyers switched to fully electric options built by companies that had never made a combustion engine in their lives. So Toyota faced a brutal question. Should it spend years building its own battery empire from scratch, watching the market race ahead while it worked, or was there a faster way in? This is exactly the moment when BYD enters the story, and it is important to understand that BYD is not just another car company that happened to get lucky. BYD began as a battery manufacturer, building rechargeable cells for mobile phones long before it ever built a car. When it did move into vehicles, it kept that battery-first mindset and built almost everything itself, from the battery cells to the motors to much of the software. This is called vertical integration, and it means BYD controls nearly every piece of the puzzle instead of depending on outside suppliers, which lets it move faster and keep costs lower than almost anyone else in the business. The centerpiece of BYD's rise is something called the blade battery, and to understand why it matters, you first need to understand the problem every battery engineer loses sleep over. A battery has to store enough energy to drive hundreds of kilometers, survive thousands of charge cycles without wearing out.
Chinese car maker BYD has production car top speed benchmark of 496.22 kilometers per hour.
Stay safe even when punctured or crushed in an accident, and still be cheap enough that the finished car does not cost a fortune. Most electric cars before this used a battery chemistry built from nickel, manganese, and cobalt, which stores a lot of energy but can be expensive and, under extreme stress, prone to overheating. BYD instead leaned into a different chemistry called lithium iron phosphate, which trades a little bit of raw energy density for something incredibly valuable. It is cheaper to produce, it lasts through far more charging cycles, and it stays remarkably calm under heat and stress. Then BYD did something clever with the physical shape of the battery itself. Instead of grouping cells into bulky modules the way most manufacturers do, engineers stretched the cells into long, thin, blade-like strips and packed them directly into the battery pack, skipping the module stage almost entirely. This sounds like a small design trick, but it freed up an enormous amount of usable space inside the pack, letting BYD squeeze more energy into the same footprint without inflating the price. And when engineers tested the blade battery with one of the harshest safety demonstrations in the industry, driving a steel nail straight through it to simulate a catastrophic puncture, the pack did not explode into flame the way conventional batteries often do. It stayed warm, not burning. That single test result, however dramatic it looks on video, became a symbol of a battery built for real-world safety rather than just laboratory bragging rights. So now the real mystery of this story comes into focus. The question is no longer whether BYD can build a good battery. Clearly it can. The real question is why Toyota, a company obsessed with independence and control, would be willing to build a car powered by a rival's technology. And the clearest place to see the answer is not in a boardroom or a press release, but in a single car quietly rolling off a production line and onto the streets of China, the Toyota BZ3. When rivals become partners, the Toyota BZ3 looks, at first glance, like any other modern electric sedan. Smooth lines, a spacious cabin, the familiar Toyota badge on the nose. But pop the hood, so to speak, and the story gets far more interesting. This car was not born purely inside Toyota's own labs. It came out of a joint venture Toyota formed with BYD, splitting the workload in a way that would have seemed unthinkable a decade earlier. BYD supplied the electric platform, the blade battery, the motors, and much of the underlying software. Toyota handled the exterior design, the interior comfort, the suspension tuning, the crash safety engineering, and of course, the brand trust that comes with its name. This is not a story of Toyota simply buying a finished BYD car and slapping its own logo on it. That would be closer to giving up. What actually happened is more layered. Each company brought something the other one genuinely lacked. BYD had spent years mastering battery chemistry.
When we started tracking data for lithium-ion batteries, we have seen over a 200% increase.
The batteries are in all kinds of electronics.
And EV systems that Toyota did not have time to build from zero. Toyota had spent decades mastering how to design, test, manufacture, and sell cars that people trust with their families at massive global scale. Put those two things together, and you get a car that reaches the market far faster than either company could manage completely alone. There is a term for this kind of relationship, and it explains a lot about how modern industries actually work behind the scenes. Co-opetition, cooperation between companies that are, at the very same time, competing against each other in the wider market. It sounds contradictory, and in a way it is, but it happens more often than people realize. Businesses do not need to beat every single rival in every single category to succeed. Sometimes the smartest move is to team up in the one area where a competitor already has a clear advantage, so you can focus your own energy on the areas where you can actually win. To understand why Toyota chose this path, you have to think about how differently the electric car race moves compared to the world Toyota grew up in. In the old days, a company could spend 5 or 6 years quietly developing a new engine, unveil it, and still be competitive when it launched, because the whole industry moved at roughly the same pace. In today's EV race, especially inside China, that timeline is a death sentence. A company that spends years perfecting its own battery system in isolation might finish just in time to discover the market has already moved twice, and the technology it just built is already behind. This is where Toyota's decision starts to look less like desperation and more like a calculated purchase, not of a car part, but of something far more valuable: time. By using BYD's already proven battery technology right now, Toyota can keep selling competitive electric cars in China today instead of waiting years for its own systems to mature. That breathing room matters enormously, because Toyota was not simply trying to survive the moment. It was buying itself a bridge, a way to stay relevant in the present while it worked quietly on something bigger for the future. And that bigger future has a name: solid-state batteries. Almost every major automaker on Earth is chasing this technology, because on paper, it solves several of the biggest headaches of electric cars all at once. A solid-state battery swaps out the flammable liquid electrolyte found in almost every EV battery today for a solid material instead, which can allow for higher energy density, meaning more range from a smaller, lighter pack, along with the possibility of dramatically faster charging and improved safety since there is no liquid inside to catch fire. It is important to be careful here, because these are targets Toyota is working toward, not products sitting in showrooms today. But if Toyota genuinely believes a major leap forward in battery technology is coming within a few years,
ultra-fast charging cars, a whole new lineup of models that we based on much more powerful, robust batteries. But
spending a fortune racing to build the perfect but temporary EV platform right now may not be the smartest use of its money. Better to use technology that already exists, hold the line in the present, and pour serious resources into the breakthrough waiting on the horizon. Now flip the story around and look at it from BYD's side, because this partnership was never a one-way favor. Working with Toyota, one of the most respected and recognized car brands on the planet, gives BYD something money cannot easily buy: credibility on the world stage. It sends a message to every automaker watching that BYD's battery technology is not just good enough for budget-friendly domestic cars, it is good enough for one of the most demanding, quality-obsessed manufacturers in the entire industry. That kind of validation can open doors far beyond China's borders. Of course, a partnership between fierce rivals is never as clean and comfortable as it looks in a press photo. There are real tensions humming underneath the surface. Toyota has to be careful about how much it leans on BYD's technology without losing its own identity and long-term independence. BYD, meanwhile, has to think hard about how much of its hard-won expertise it wants to hand over to a company that could, one day, become an even bigger threat once it finishes building its own solutions. Neither side is doing this purely out of friendship. Both are calculating, watching, and protecting their own future, even while shaking hands in the present. Step back even further, and this story stops being just about two companies and starts looking like a preview of where the entire car industry is heading. In the combustion era, success was mostly about mastering the engine and the mechanical parts around it. In the electric era, success increasingly depends on batteries, software, computer chips, motors, and charging systems, areas where the traditional walls between a car company and a technology supplier are starting to blur. The company that wins in this new era might not be the one that builds absolutely everything by itself. It might be the one that knows exactly which battles to fight alone and which ones to win by teaming up. That leaves Toyota facing its biggest question yet. What happens if the big bet on tomorrow's battery technology does not arrive on time? Toyota's big bet: survive today, build tomorrow. Forget the simple story of Toyota versus BYD for a moment, because the real question running underneath this entire saga is much bigger than one partnership. It is this: How does a 100-year-old automaker survive a once-in-a-generation technology shift without throwing away the very engineering identity that made it great in the first place? Toyota's answer seems to be a careful balancing act. One foot planted firmly in the present, the other stretching toward a future it is still building. That balancing act starts with something Toyota already has in abundance: hybrid cars. While headlines obsess over pure electric vehicles, Toyota continues selling millions of hybrids every single year around the world, generating enormous, steady cash flow. This existing hybrid business acts almost like a financial safety net, giving Toyota room to breathe and invest in tomorrow's technology without gambling the entire company on a single electric leap. It does not need to abandon hybrids overnight to prove it belongs in the electric future. It can run multiple paths at once, while the market itself keeps figuring out exactly where it is headed. Layered on top of that safety net sits the bridge built with BYD. By using proven, ready-made battery technology right now, Toyota can compete seriously in the world's toughest EV market today, instead of standing on the sidelines waiting for its own systems to mature. But bridges are not meant to be permanent homes, and this is where the strategy gets genuinely risky. If BYD keeps improving faster than expected, Toyota may find itself leaning on a rival for longer than it ever intended. If Toyota's own next-generation battery breakthrough gets delayed even by a year or two, that temporary bridge suddenly has to hold a lot more weight than planned. And customers rarely care about 5-year strategies. They judge a car company by what it can actually sell them right now, not by promises about the future. So what exactly is Toyota racing toward on the other side of that bridge? At the center of it all sits solid-state battery technology, and Toyota has laid out an ambitious roadmap aiming for real commercial versions arriving around 2027 to 2028. Unlike the liquid-filled batteries powering nearly every electric car today, a solid-state battery replaces that flammable liquid with a solid electrolyte material. Engineers describe the potential gains almost like a wish list finally coming true. Driving ranges pushing toward 1,000 kilometers on a single charge.
The car surged past 70 miles an hour, overcoming its braking power and stopping only after we shifted to neutral.
Fast charging that could take a battery from nearly empty to nearly full in around 10 minutes, and a dramatically reduced risk of the battery overheating or catching fire, since there is no liquid left inside to ignite in the first place. Toyota is even reportedly partnering with a major Japanese energy company to help mass-produce the specialized solid electrolyte material needed to make this technology work at real-world scale, rather than just inside a research lab. It is worth staying grounded here, because ambition and reality are not always the same thing. These are targets Toyota is chasing, not features sitting in a showroom today, and the company still faces serious engineering hurdles before any of this becomes an everyday product. Fast charging, for instance, can cause tiny needle-like structures called dendrites to form inside a solid battery, which can create dangerous short circuits if engineers cannot fully control them. Manufacturing solid-state cells also demands an extremely precise, ultra-clean production environment that is far harder to scale up quickly than a normal battery factory. These are not small technical footnotes. They are exactly the kind of stubborn problems that can turn a promising 2027 target into a quietly delayed 2029 reality. This uncertainty is precisely what makes Toyota's overall bet so fascinating to watch unfold. If the solid-state breakthrough arrives on schedule and performs anywhere close to what Toyota hopes, this entire strategy could look brilliant in hindsight. A company that resisted the pressure to panic, used a smart short-term partnership to stay competitive, and then leapfrogged the entire industry with genuinely next-generation technology. But if the timeline slips, competitors like BYD are not going to stand still and wait politely. They will keep refining their existing lithium-based batteries, keep dropping prices, and keep expanding their lead, potentially turning Toyota's patient long game into a story about a giant that waited just a little too long. This is really the heart of the entire situation. Toyota is not simply betting on a piece of battery chemistry. It is betting on timing itself, one of the hardest things for any company, no matter how large or wealthy, to predict with real confidence. And when you place BYD and Toyota side by side, neither company holds every advantage. BYD has speed, aggressive vertical integration, deep battery expertise, and genuine momentum in the here and now, Toyota has massive global manufacturing scale, an enormous trusted customer base built over generations, deep engineering experience, and a hybrid business quietly funding its next big move. Their strengths point in almost opposite directions, and that contrast is exactly what makes their partnership so unusual and worth paying attention to. Zoom out even further, and the Toyota-BYD relationship starts to look less like an isolated event and more like a signal for where the whole car industry is headed next. Automakers may increasingly find that trying to build absolutely everything in-house is no longer the smartest path to winning. Real competitive advantage might come from knowing exactly which technologies to develop yourself and which ones to borrow, at least temporarily, from someone who already got there first. Complete independence sounds proud, but flexibility might actually be what survives the next decade of disruption. Which brings the story full circle, back to Toyota's own history. This is a company that built its entire reputation on disciplined, self-reliant, in-house engineering, so working hand-in-hand with a Chinese rival naturally looks uncomfortable from the outside, maybe even a little embarrassing to longtime fans of the brand. But business survival was never really about protecting pride. If teaming up with a competitor keeps Toyota strong today while it quietly builds the technology it truly believes in for tomorrow, that decision looks far less like surrender and far more like discipline under pressure. Is Toyota actually behind in the EV race? Maybe, in the narrow sense of pure electric sales right now. But caution can sometimes be a deliberate choice rather than a failure, even if the market rarely rewards patience the way engineers hope it will. And that leaves us right back where we started, standing beside a Toyota BZ3, quietly rolling through a Chinese city, carrying a rival's battery inside a body Toyota designed itself. It is not really a contradiction once you understand it. It might simply be what a real technological turning point looks like. Up close, messy, uncomfortable, and full of temporary alliances that make perfect sense only when you zoom out far enough to see the whole picture. Toyota's BYD deal a sign of weakness, or a smart strategy for survival. The truth is, nobody knows yet. But one thing is clear. The automotive industry is changing faster than ever, and even giants like Toyota are being forced to rethink the rules. Partnering with a rival may seem risky, but it could also be the bridge Toyota needs to stay competitive in the EV race. As electric vehicles reshape the global market, the biggest winners may be the companies willing to adapt before it's too late. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the EV battle is just beginning.